one nap can happen anywhere from around 12 months old for babies that are sleeping really well at night time and then may even sleep in a little bit in the mornings, to around 15 to 18 months old. It really depends on when they're sleeping till in the morning, because if they're sleeping until 8 o'clock in the morning and then you're trying to squeeze in another morning nap and then another nap in the afternoon, the problem can happen that the last nap becomes too late, and then that affects your nighttime settling, and then it's kind of a wee bit of a vicious cycle. So when your baby is sleeping in the morning, if they're waking really early, between 6 and 7 o'clock, especially closer to 6 o'clock, then they're going to need to keep that morning nap a little bit longer. The other thing that can affect your timing of when you need to drop the nap is if your baby is still waking overnight. If your baby is still waking overnight and they're even awake for 20-30 minutes, then that will affect their tiredness during the day. So you'll probably find that they will need to still keep that morning nap a little bit longer than a baby who's getting a solid 12 or 13 hours overnight. So in our programs, we go over the different times at which we would recommend dropping the nap. It starts, as I said, anywhere from around 12 months old until 15 to 18 months old. It would need to be completely gone. Another thing that can affect if your baby needs to still keep that morning nap or not is if your baby is sick, or they've had a late night, or for some reason they've woken up one night, then yeah, you might need to squeeze a little morning nap in to get them through the until their lunchtime nap. Our programs go through the best times and the ways of dropping the nap. We start by reducing the morning nap until it's almost gone and keeping a decent lunchtime nap in. This is an easier way of transitioning than having a longer morning nap and then an afternoon catch up, because the baby or toddler is used to having that good lunchtime sleep in the middle of the day.
Toddlers are very interesting creatures and they can be somewhat complicated. The main reason we generally find that toddlers are taking forever to go to sleep at bedtime in the evening is because they've napped too long in the day, or their nap is too late in the day. And generally we'll be looking at by around 2.5 to 3 years old, your toddler will have reduced and then dropped that daytime nap altogether. And children who are holding on to a long daytime sleep or any amount of daytime sleep really beyond 3 years old are going to really struggle to go to bed in the evening because they're just not tired. They have a lot of staying power and they are very, very strong-willed. And if they're not completely tired and ready for sleep, there's going to be a million reasons that they need to get out of bed when you're trying to put them to bed in the evening. Now the tricky thing is your toddler is not going to necessarily naturally lose their nap or decrease their nap hours, because why would you? And toddlers are busy little beings, and you know, a lot of them might be at daycare or preschool and they have really busy days. It's very exhausting being a toddler. So if it was up to a toddler, they would hold on to their day sleep as long as they could, and then of course that's going to wreak havoc with their bedtime settling, which is not ideal because they're going to be missing out on that more restorative sleep overnight. So it does come down to you having a bit more control over your toddler's napping. And yes, that is going to mean that by the time they start reaching a particular age and you notice that they're still napping for 2 hours, but now actually they're mucking around for an hour at bedtime, you sort of need to go, okay, maybe it's time that we start cutting that daytime sleep down. And you would do it gradually, and you would do it every, couple of days. So it's not sort of all of a sudden you've gone from napping for 2 hours to napping for 15 minutes. And the idea is you're just going to slowly cut that sleep down so that they'll start settling quicker at bedtime in the evening. And when I'm talking about bedtime, I'm talking somewhere around 7 o'clock. So you certainly wouldn't want to be putting your toddler to bed much later than that, especially once you've started to reduce and then completely remove that nap. So that's their daytime naps. Now, toddlers are also relatively challenging when it comes to, can be challenging when it comes to their bedtime behaviour as well. And I'm sure you will realise that your toddler will literally do anything they can for attention and for reward, and that doesn't always necessarily mean good attention. A lot of toddler behaviour stems from getting any kind of response, positive or negative. So they very, very quickly learn that if they're doing something, even if it's yielding a negative response from you, it's still a response, it's still a reason to not go to bed, and so they're going to keep doing that behaviour. It's quite hard to sort of give you an exact answer for how to fix this with your toddler's bedtime. It depends really on your child's age, whether they're napping or not, and what their sleep environment's like, whether they're still in a crib, whether they've moved to a bed, and all of those sorts of factors can play into it, as well as their diet. But we do, in our toddler sleep program, have a whole lot of different solutions in a section we call Toddler Tactics, which looks at how to deal with resisting bedtime or habitually getting up, and how to deal with habit waking in the night, or if they keep getting up out of bed and coming into your room, or if they're waking early in the morning. So once you've made sure that it's not something that's happening in their day that's impacting on their night, then we can start looking at what's causing that repetitive, disruptive behaviour in the evening, and work towards getting your toddler calmly into bed at a decent time. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for a lot more baby and toddler sleep videos. So to best answer this question, I sort of need to go back to the start and explain a bit about how we are biologically programmed to respond to sleep. So traditionally speaking, before we had electricity and lived the way we do live now, as dusk approached in the evening, it would have got dark, and we didn't have the ability as humans to prolong daylight through the use of artificial lighting. And so bedtime for most humans, babies, toddlers, children and adults, would have been just after dusk. So we're talking somewhere between 6 and 7:30 p.m. And that is the time that we are biologically programmed to go to sleep. Our bodies are triggered by things that happen in our environment, which help us know that it's time to go to sleep and help us fall asleep. So that's things like a temperature change. And again, if we're looking at more of a traditional way of living, as the sun went down, there would have been a drop in temperature, which signaled to our bodies that sleep was approaching. This also kicked off a rise in our melatonin levels. And so melatonin is a hormone that is released in the dark, and it is triggered by things like a change in temperature. And that hormone is pumped through our bodies until around midnight. And it is crucial to us falling asleep and staying asleep and sleeping really deeply and restoratively. And so that, in a nutshell, is how we are biologically programmed to sleep at night. Which is why the bedtime for babies and toddlers, and actually preschoolers and young children as well, tends to be around 7 p.m. because that's when it's dark, there's been a bit of a temperature shift, and our bodies start being pumped full of those really good sleep hormones. Also, before midnight, the hours you sleep before midnight are generally referred to as your most restorative sleep. This is when you are sleeping your deepest sleep. And fun fact, when you dream, you're actually in your lighter sleep stages, which is usually after midnight. So this is why we always aim to have our babies and toddlers in bed earlier rather than later, because they're getting more of those really good sleep hours before midnight. So if your child is going to bed quite late, 9, 10, even 11, or if they're unsettled and they're not falling asleep until then, they're getting less of a chance to have those good sleep hours and be pumped full of those good sleep hormones before midnight. So how do you actually get your baby to sleep at 7 p.m? The trick is to make sure that their day is all aligned to lead to a settled bedtime at around 7 p.m. So that would mean making sure their naps are happening at the right times during the day, that they're not overtired and that they're not undertired. So then they're perfectly ready for bed at 7 p.m. and they'll settle easily and sleep well at that point. Another important thing for heading toward a bedtime of 7 p.m. is implementing a wake up time in the morning of around 7 a.m. and waking your baby if they're not already awake, or aiming for a wake up time of 7 a.m. is going to help kickstart your baby's circadian rhythm for the day, and that's going to make sure all their naps are happening at the perfect time to then work towards a 7 p.m. bedtime. Through our sleep programs, we have really age-specific awake windows, nap times and nap lengths for your baby and toddler right up to 3 years old. And so all of that is geared around the way our bodies naturally respond to sleep, and we work with your baby and toddler's circadian rhythm to help get their naps happening, to help get towards an earlier, decent 7 p.m. bedtime in the evening.
Often this happens when your toddler is very, very tired and they just find comfort in you laying with them. So toddlers go through stages of this. They'll want you to lay with them often. And you know what? Sometimes if my own children are really sick or really tired and they ask me to lay with them, I will, because I know that it's going to be a quick fix and it's not going to be forever. But if it does become a bit of a habit and they want you to lay with them every night, we have quite a few tricks and tips in our toddler guide to be able to work away from kind of being able to trick them into being able to go to sleep without needing you, but knowing that you're still there. We're not going to ever do any sort of abandonment training or anything. It is checking on them and knowing they're comfortable and they are comfortable with you being there and they are able to go to sleep. Another thing that can happen with toddlers, especially around the 2 to 3.5, 4-year-old mark, is they can actually get quite scared of the dark, and that is why they want you to lay with them. So in those sorts of cases, I would look at a nightlight, and now nightlights are designed for children or toddlers when they are scared of the dark. Make sure you don't get a blue light. The blue light is actually, blue is the highest spectral sensitivity at night time, and once your eyes dark adapt, the blue will be very piercing and very stimulating. If the toddler woke up at night time, they wouldn't be able to almost go back to sleep if they looked at the light. So red is the lowest spectral sensitivity, and that will be quite dim still once their eyes are dark adapted. So nightlight. Another thing that can help your toddler feel more secure and more comfortable is by letting them go to sleep with the door open. That just doesn't create a barrier of them in their bedroom and you out in the lounge or whatever. It means that they feel a little bit more like they're with you when they're going to sleep. So I know we all go through stages. Toddlers do all sorts of behavior things when they're trying to go to sleep. The first thing is, are they tired? Secondly, are they sick or are they really overtired? And if so, just get them to sleep whatever means you can. And then lastly, are they scared of the dark? And if so, a nightlight or just leaving the door open might help in getting them to go to sleep quicker. I hope that answers your question. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to get further free baby sleep videos just like this one.